Hey guys, welcome back. This is Midnight at the Monster Museum episode. Who's even counting anymore? I have no idea. But we are here with a makeup effects guy. He's been a shop guy, he's been a set guy, he's been a badass. His name is Nick Benson. And Nick Benson is going to tell us his story about how he got to where he is and all the cool, awesome legends he's worked with and alongside. And he'll also talk a little bit about how we met, and I think it's going to be pretty cool. So hang on in there, and we're going to get started right after these screams. All right, here we are. Hey, Nick, how's it going?
What's happening?
So, for those of you who don't know, Nick is out here in Las Vegas area. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Nick, and then we'll get into the meat and potatoes of this.
Meat and potatoes, is that lunch or dinner or what?
No, I don't eat food anymore.
So, you know, I've been involved in film, or my whole family has since I was a kid. I had a stepfather who was an editor, and my mother was an executive at Universal. So I grew up around Universal Studios, and, you know, all the Universal monsters were an obsession.
That's
from a
awesome.
very, very young age.
You were like at Universal Studios.
Yes, constantly.
That's awesome. That's awesome. How young were you, do you think?
I think I started going with my mom when I was starting around 8 or 9.
That's so cool.
And you know, from there, like as I got older, I would even steal her golf cart and go just drive around and take her credentials and slip into rides when I could. You know, it was a little different back then, the way they had it set up, but it was really fun.
That's awesome. I can't imagine growing up on the backlot. I think it's so cool my kids get to grow up in a monster museum, but you got to grow up around where the monsters actually were.
Definitely.
So that's cool. So basically, I moved to Las Vegas, I think, about 5 years ago or so. And one of the first people that I met here, effects-wise, was you. And it was a little while into me living here. I was here for probably about 2 or 3 years, and I thought there just are no other effects guys in Las Vegas.
Right.
And then I met a couple effects artists locally, some prop guys. And then I started hearing about a guy named Nick Benson who lived out here. And I knew some of the body of work that he had done. And I thought, that's so cool that this guy's out here. And I don't think it was until maybe the Days of the Dead. We met before the Days of the Dead show.
Yes.
You came to the Monster Museum
with Jim
Jim McWilliams.
Yeah.
And we hit it off right away, I think. Yeah. And I mean, we have very common influence.
Oh, yeah.
We have a very common story, even though a couple years apart.
Yeah. You
know, with our love of Hollywood and our love of monsters, and then kind of our like, all right, now what the hell am I going to do with my life?
Yeah, exactly.
So we met at the Monster Museum. We start bumping into each other around town. I remember posting a picture of that badass Evil Knievel, and you were like, hey, I made that. And that was awesome. Big Evil fan. And, you know, there's some cool ties that just brought us together as buddies. And then we ended up working together on a video project, which was awesome. And all I can say is in the smallest sea or the smallest pond, there doesn't have to be one big fish. It's kind of cool to meet your peers and your allies and keep them as friends instead of enemies. You know, not everybody has to be in competition.
No.
I think everybody can help each other out in a way, you know, as long as there's respect involved. So that's kind of, you had come to me at one point about working on a project with you, and that's when I saw that immense respect, and I thought that was great.
Yeah, definitely. To me, I love collaborating with other artists. I think it's important to do that.
Right.
You know, you may learn something new that you never knew.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's always about expanding your opportunities and you know, combining efforts to do bigger things. You know.
Right.
So I'm always about that, but as you know, we've both been kind of
you get screwed.
Yeah,
it happens.
Yeah, it happens.
And so you learn from it, and you just got to be more careful and more cautious and set your expectations a little bit lower.
Learn what not to do.
Yeah, but what I can say about Nick's career before I let him talk about his career from beginning is he's a couple years my senior as far as his workflow. And so the movies that he worked on were some of the films that influenced me to move out to LA and to start a career in effects. And then to be a part of it myself, it is now interesting 20 years later to see the movies that I've worked on that have started to influence some people to get their foot in the door. So it's this really cool kind of vision into the future of like, well, people do care. And we definitely care about the stuff Nick's done. We've talked about a lot of these movies on air on our first season of podcast. We definitely did some reviews on films you were involved with, and from this, I'm just going to let you tell your story and let us have it.
So where do you want me to start?
So let's go back to Universal at 8 years old or 9 years old. I mean, your parents are both involved with the film industry,
right?
And then how did that segue? Did you have dreams at that time of being part of it, or did it take a while to kind of set in?
It took a few years to sort of set in to think about actually doing it as a career, because I really, as a child, you really don't think about those things. You're just like, oh, this is so cool, and you're so absorbed in what happens to the monster or the story of the movie you're watching. And for me, it was like I was obsessed with Universal monsters. It started with the Wolfman, and then went to Frankenstein, and then as soon as I saw Creature, that was the end of it. That was my favorite one. He's the most misunderstood. So and then as I grew older, it developed into like a love of all the Hammer films that were coming out, and my mother hated those because they had nudity and blood and lots of violence, and she didn't like me watching those, so I'd have to like sneak up and watch him in the middle of the night or whatever.
I get ridiculed for it, but I still say to this day, I love Bela Lugosi. I think he's a great performer, but Christopher Lee's my favorite Dracula.
Yeah, we're very similar that way, because I will never say I don't like Bela, because Bela is Bela, and that's his take on the character. Yeah. But Christopher Lee, to me, with that voice, and he just had such frightening presence. To me, he scared the shit out of me. So he was more important to me than Bela was. Bela never scared me. So Christopher Lee was definitely the Dracula for me. So it just kind of evolved into that and the love of those, and I'd have to sneak out and watch them, and my mother'd get upset. And then I've talked about this on other podcasts where like you're in school, and I don't know if you had them as a kid, but they had these peachy folders that had like athletes on them jumping in the air with a basketball. So what I would do is I would like sketch over that with a dude stabbing the other guy with a knife and holding a bomb and like just like gore all. I just turned it into this gory painting, and my mother just thought that I was just twisted. She thought something was wrong with me. She's like, we might need to get you therapy or something. and so she as things progressed, obviously, and I went into this career, she was like, oh, it all makes sense now.
Yeah. How did you get your start in the career, and about how old were you?
That is, that's kind of being in the right place at the right time, and I like to say it was really dumb luck, to be honest with you, because I was a musician and I wrote a lot of music. I played in a whole bunch of different bands from high school on out, and then when I left high school, I moved to Hollywood, and in this weird, inadvertent way, I was in a band with this guy Sean Brennan, who was Kevin Brennan's brother. And I wound up in the band with him, and then I was looking for a place to live. Well, they had a room available in their house in Burbank, and the other roommate was Steve. So I wound up roommates
Johnson,
with,
for those of you that don't know.
Yeah, I wound up roommates with Steve Johnson, Kevin Brennan, and my guitarist.
Okay.
So it was quite the household, and it was very hard to focus on music when you have these incredible monster makers live with you. Yeah. And they're bringing these things home to sculpt, or they're showing you what they're working on, so it evolved for me, because I joined this band with Sean, and was talking about all these performance art things and stage things I wanted to do on stage, and kind of caught Steve's ear a little bit, and I started, drawing things and like kind of explaining things to my guitarist, and Steve happened to be there. And at one point, we started developing the band, and we hadn't quite gotten to where we were playing anywhere yet, but Steve just one night just said, "Hey man, you want to come make Rubber Monsters?" And it was kind of like, okay, music's out the window, and I'm going to go make Rubber Monsters.
Did you quit the band right then?
Kind of. I think to this day, Sean is a little angry with me over that.
Yeah.
But, it was kind of that way. It was more like, well, are you going to come to rehearsal? No, I'm working, kind of thing. And then he was just like, you know what? I need to get somebody else to replace you.
Yeah. Did Sean Brennan ever dabble in effects?
Sean was actually, I remember Sean being in Poltergeist 2 as an extra. Okay. Like, he was perfect for makeup. So,
yeah.
Because he's really tall, really thin. I think he did do some of it, but it just wasn't, his music was his thing. He's an incredible guitarist.
Right.
And he and I wrote some neat stuff, so he just kind of started there and took off of that project and is still doing it today.
So what was your first, when Steve asked you to come work for him, what was your first job you started working?
The first job, let me think about that. He hadn't started XFX yet. He had left Boss. And he was sharing a shop with Todd Masters.
Okay.
So I'd go with him into the shop there, and then they were just kind of doing some things, and it was just getting ready to do Night of the Demons. So they weren't quite ready to start, but they had me do a couple things. They did a couple test makeups on me. They did some, little things here and there. I actually wore the test makeup for Angela.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I'm still trying to find those pictures, but hopefully one day I will. But yeah, we were doing, I don't remember exactly what we were doing right before Night of the Demons, but they did the test makeup on me, and I was just helping around the shop. And then when Steve was pretty happy with that stuff, we started, and I was just like, I was casting stuff. I was, as I would sort of prove my worth, it'd give me more and more to do. So it was like, okay, you'll cast this, or you'll, go clean out this mold, or, whatever. Just whatever they wanted me to do, I didn't give a shit. It was just sweep the floor, sure. Sweep the floor, do it. I don't care. This is awesome,
The thing is that this is where I feel like our lives parallel a little bit. And I think most up-and-coming effects artists, before the Instagram days or before the days of like showing your worth online before you were even hired or asked to come there, I used to show up at a shop. First day, I'd do whatever they asked me to do. I'd work my tail off to get responsibility. Like you would work for the job.
Exactly.
And that it's awesome to hear other people talk about it, because sometimes it was kind of hellacious, but then other times it was like, oh my God, I'm working on X-Files right now, or whatever.
Yeah, it is exactly. And like for me, it was, I didn't know really anything about the story of what Night of the Demons was.
Nobody did.
I just saw like Steve starting to make stuff for it, and saw some sketches, and I was just blown away.
And nobody knew that would be a cult classic.
No, not at all.
Film that lasts forever.
Not
really, Night of the Demons kind of subsided through the mid-'90s for a long time. Yeah. And then once the internet and Shudder and these kind of things pop up, all of a sudden this is a fan favorite. And I'm like, thank God, because I've loved that movie since I was a kid.
Yeah. So in doing that stuff through the shop for that film, it was like just a lot of casting, and I got to actually the point where, what was cool was Steve was really supportive and like, here, I think you can do this. So look at this paint job. Like he gave me the set of teeth. I had the set of teeth from I still have them somewhere, but that he painted, and he said, just copy this if you can. And do one set and see if you can do it. And I did, and I could. So they just had me knocking out teeth for the movie.
And you were artistically inclined to begin with. Yeah. So I mean that helps.
And then making blood, of course, like you know the drill.
Yeah.
Making blood, doing whatever, and then I started just kind of nosing my way into everything. Like, can I help you with this? Can I help you with that? With the animatronics, with this rig or a blood rig or whatever. Just started pushing my way into helping the different guys in the shop, like Mark Garbarino and I were kind of at this. I think on that film, Mark Garbarino and I were kind of the same kind of thing. It was like he was just he was only doing so many things, and I was only doing so many things, And at one point, I can't remember how far in we were, but we were charged with making Jill Teresita's like demon possessed.
Right.
Yeah. So we wound up making that together. And so that was like the big thing on that film. And then of course I helped with the chest cast and whatever I could get my hands on. I just sort of stuck my nose in it. Like, hey, can I help with that? Hey, can I help with that?
So you would say Night of the Demons was your first big project?
Yeah, definitely. It was my first film, official.
At that point, did you know? Were you like, hey, this might be my job from now on? Yeah,
no, I knew because I actually had spent, before I met Steve and before I was, while I was playing guitar and whatever in a band, I was working for a sound studio, and I had done post-production. I was a film editor. I was an apprentice film editor. So I had done a couple of films that way.
Yeah.
But for me, I love the whole process of production, period. But I wasn't having a lot of fun doing, splicing film and,
right.
Labeling trim bins and shit like that. Because back then it wasn't video; it was all film.
Yeah.
So you had these bins full of clips that you would have to take to the editor on the Chem 8 plate, and it was just crazy.
Yeah.
So that really wasn't. It was fun, but it wasn't really like making monsters, of course.
Of course, and with making monsters, you get to put some kick-ass music on.
Yeah.
And make jokes and
Exactly.
inside jokes that last forever, and just kind of do it.
Exactly.
It's fun.
So that's where it started.
So after Night of the Demons, did you stay with Steve Johnson? Did you work with him for a while?
I did. I stayed with Steve. They were still in this shared shop, I think, when we started Dead Heat. And that was when he was establishing a new space with XFX and trying to get all that together. We had started Dead Heat. And, there was just so much going on in that film. There were so many effects in that film to do. But it was pretty cool.
How many effects artists do you think worked on it?
Well, I know Todd took like the entire Butcher Shop sequence and was working on that. He headed that up, and I think he had 2 or 3 people working on that.
Yeah.
And I was bouncing around doing whatever I could get my hands in.
So you got to work with Todd Masters as well.
Yeah, I love Todd. Todd is, to this day, I love that guy. He's just awesome.
I never worked with him personally, but I used to go. He used to have these killer Halloween parties.
Yeah.
I used to go to the Halloween parties.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember maybe you might be a little young, but when I was working with him, he had started he loves Halloween.
Yeah.
So he had started those O-Lantern family. They were like jack-o'-lanterns that had human faces and shit.
Oh, I do remember.
So he had started those when we were in that shop.
Yeah.
And he had just started sculpting them. He's like, I don't know if these are going to take off, and they did. They did really well. But,
that's cool.
Yeah, that was
very cool.
Fun.
Did you, aside from Dead Heat, did you do any other big movies with Steve before moving on?
Well, no. I kind of what I did was I'm trying to think. I can't remember from there if I jumped over to George's, but it was kind of like a lot of back and forth.
Right.
Once Dead Heat was over, I think I moved on from there, but then I came back. Because I came back on Abyss for a bit, but I was still at George's and his.
Okay.
And then same with Nightmare. So it was kind of like a round robin. I was just I was learning as much as I could, and then when there wasn't work with Steve or there wasn't work with George, I would obviously be They would always help me out. Like say, hey, call so and so. They're doing this.
So there was no potential ownership. They weren't like, oh, you're my guy. You don't go over and work with those people.
No, they never made me feel that way.
That's cool.
It was actually Steve that, had called and set up my meeting with George. He said, well, George has got some stuff going on. Why don't you go meet with him? I'll make a phone call.
For those of you who don't know, he's talking about Screaming Mad George, who's a legendary effects artist. He's now resides in Japan, I think. But what did you work on with George?
With George, we started on, let me think, Society, I think it was.
That is a mind bender.
That one was really cool, and it was really cool working with George because when I interviewed with George, it was like I had built up a decent portfolio of things to at least show that I could do a really round, complete, lot of things. I could make molds. I could do this. I could do that. So I had a good on what I could do and what I couldn't do. So I showed George that, and he just kind of flipped through it really quick and then sets it aside, and he goes, "So, who are your influences in art?" And I was like, "Oh shit, this is different." And so I rattled off, of course, Giger, because I love Giger, and I love Hieronymus Bosch, and of course Salvador Dali, and his face lit up like to no end. He said, "Well, you're in good company. We like the same music, and obviously we like the same art. So why don't you come work for me?"
That's awesome.
And I tried to stick with George as long as I could, and I really stayed with that shop until I left LA. Actually,
what are some memorable projects that you did with him?
Well, there's a Japanese movie called Tito Tyson that we did. That was really, there was some really weird shit in that movie. It was so cool.
Yeah.
We had these like kids that we just made this one. There's one actor in there that's the villain, and we made these heads, like all these like 50 heads of these things. So there's like all these kids wearing them. So there's like all miniature versions of him running around. It looked crazy on camera. So it was just really some weird shit in that movie. And then there's a little girl that's like got a bug body. Motohara, do you know Motohara? He's an incredible sculptor. He's passed away a few years back, but a lot of the guys that I worked with remember him and loved him.
Yeah,
he was he was really my best friend at that shop besides George, and just an amazing sculptor. And he sculpted that bug body, so it's this weird little like bug body with a baby girl's head.
Yeah, and
it's just so much weird stuff going on in it. And that movie had some crazy stuff. But Society kind of speaks for itself.
Yeah,
I did a lot of stuff on that film, and George. It was great because George really didn't have the time to like babysit me, so to speak.
Yeah,
like he wasn't like Steve, or Steve would like to check in with you everything you did, like check in every few minutes and say, "Oh, how are you doing on that?" George like would hand me stuff and go, "Okay, you're doing this." Like I had to sculpt Ferguson's head for the shunting sequence.
Yeah.
So he's like, "Do it. Here's the cast, just do it." And I was like, "Oh shit." So he was just like giving me this, he had this trust in me that I could handle it.
That's cool.
And whether I knew whether I could handle it or not, I had no clue.
Yeah.
So I just did the best I could, and I think I did pretty good.
Yeah.
But he trusted me to do it. I did what I needed to do, and he seemed pretty happy with what I had to do. So
that's awesome. And then jumping back over to Steve's shop, did you do? So you worked for George for a little bit, and then you go back over to Steve Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
What were the reasons for jumping back to Steve? Was it just out of time?
Work.
Yeah.
Work. And those guys, those two guys always, like, I know on Abyss, it was really Steve that got George to do the ship and all of that stuff. And then we did some miniature stuff to kill Michael Biehn.
That's super cool.
Yeah, it was pretty bitchin'. And then, like for me, like there was times when neither one of them had work. So like I remember getting on the Blob, those guys would help me out. They'd just make a phone call, say, "Hey, so-and-so's doing the Blob. Everybody's working on it. Call down there. You'll get something."
Yeah.
So that was how I wound up on that. And, same thing with Nightmare 4. It was like Nightmare 4, there's so many effects shops working on different sequences.
I think every effects guy worked on Nightmare 4. I mean, all the best.
Yeah, same with the Blob. It was like everybody was working on that show. It was the $36 million budget, so everybody was there. What's
some memorable moments from the Blob and Nightmare?
The Blob, honestly, puppeteering, because I did a lot of it, and I led some of the crews, and then I helped some of the miniature guys. I was kind of an all around guy there, because I wound up going to Tony's shop, Tony Gardner.
Yeah.
I went there to talk to them because Brian Wade was there. All the guys I'd worked with previously were all working on it.
Right.
And Tony was like, "You know what? I'm really sorry. I'm booked up.
Yeah.
I've got everybody I need." But he said, "Let me make a phone call." Again, it's like these guys backing us up.
It's crazy because you don't see that anymore.
No, not anymore.
And it's so awesome. I mean, I do remember like Matthew, who I worked for early, used to team up with Greg Canham a lot. Or he had his guys, but they they didn't reach out for
those in
things.
those days
he would put me on unemployment and be like, "We'll be back in 2 months."
Yeah, in those days it was almost like a family, and
Yeah.
I was scrambling, to try and just stay ahead of it.
Yeah.
Because in those days it was like that's kind of what I learned to do with all these other guys I worked with. It was like, well, hey, this is starting, and what was going on in Marin? I remember this guy Bill that I worked with, Bill Forsh. You may know his name.
Yeah.
Bill and I were ending something, and I can't remember what it was, and he was going to go to Marin and work on I think it was Ghostbusters 2.
Okay.
But he was like saying, "Hey, I'll put in the word for you," and I'm like, "I don't know if I can go all the way to Marin." So that kind of fell apart. But I found other stuff.
Yeah.
So, but it was nice because in those days it was almost like everybody was more like a little family.
Yeah.
And nobody was really stabbing you in the back. And at that point, through my career though, and right before I left LA, it started to get that way.
Yeah.
More and more people wanted to be into it. More and more people like cutting you for jobs. Like I wound up becoming, and I don't know how, but it's just because I wound up working with a guy that was like the best in the business at Fiberglass. And I wound up working with him a lot, and I learned and mastered Fiberglass really well. And I wound up getting hired to make these elaborate molds. Like that's how I got on Tremors. That's how I got, I got this Disney project that was this cuckoo clock for Tokyo Disney. And all these weird projects that were just because all of a sudden, because I worked with Kevin Reeder, that people associated that level of fiberglass work with me, and boom, I got the jobs. And I never stabbed Kevin in the back for any of that. I always told him, I said, "Hey, they're calling me about this," and he would always call me and go, "Hey, I've got this job. You want to help me on it?" Yeah. So it was always like that. It was never stealing stuff from anybody. Yeah. It was always working together, and that's why I am the way I am. Yeah. I like working with people. I don't like working around them
or against them.
Yeah,
that's true. So I also dabble in fiberglass and got a pretty good reputation, and it took me shop to shop. It's fun because nobody likes doing fiberglass for some reason, and I think that when you embrace it and you like it, like fiberglass molds are awesome. So
even the fiberglass casts.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
The entire heads of those 1-to-1 graboids were all fiberglass. Yeah, I made all of those.
That's awesome. Yeah. Did you pull them out of a silicone mold? Was it a giant silicone mold?
Yeah, I had to do a supersized mold of the 1-to-1s, including the bodies. Yeah. So I did all the molds for those, and then I also wound up casting the heads.
That's crazy. Yeah. I just can't imagine. I mean, so did you lay the glass in and then piece together the mold and seam them, or did you have the whole molds together and you're climbing inside glassing them?
It was a bitch. It was a bitch.
That's crazy.
But what I would do is the easiest way that I found was you leave them apart. Yeah. And then glass everything you can, and then bolt them together, and then get in there and seam them up. Seam them. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then just take a sawzall to them
later. Tyvek suit up exactly. And tape up and
climb in and do it.
That's awesome. I love it. That's the stuff, man. Like with the big budget. So I found most of my career in a very low budget world, but I did my time in the big budget world, and I missed the times where you can just be like, I need 55 gallons of polyester resin. God, like we can't do that now. So it's
I agree with you, because it's like I've done that even recently. Like I think, I just need that, and then I call and find out how much it costs.
You're like,
oh my God.
Yeah, I did need that. How else can I do it?
Right. What else can I use? Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about more Nightmare on Elm Street 4. For those of you guys listening right now, on July 11th, we're going to have Nick Benson here at the Monster Museum, as well as Lisa Wilcox. And we're going to have a little Nightmare 4 party. It's our anniversary party. We're going to have prizes, and we're going to have awesome stuff. And I hope you guys can all make it out to the Monster Museum. And if you can't, check out Monster Museum News to see how much fun we had. But tell us a little bit more about Nightmare on Elm Street 4. I mean, first of all, Night of the Demons, you didn't realize that was going to be a cult success and a mega movie.
No, I had no idea.
Nightmare on Elm Street 4, you knew.
No, I knew.
Like, we all knew.
I knew. I knew then when I got the job. And that was one of those jobs that, we're already into the fourth one in the franchise, so I was well aware of who Freddy was. Yeah. And I loved that.
And the artists who have worked on Freddy movies.
Yeah, oh, exactly. And it was like, oh, I can get on Nightmare? Wait, what? And yeah, I went for it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was an interesting, I think what I remember about that job is I was working on the Blob. I was actually on the soundstage for the Blob, and I think I remember running into Mick Strawn, who's the production designer on 4. And I tripped over his junkyard set or something. I think that's how I met him. And then he was like, oh yeah, we're starting this, so you need to call these people. And he's like, he rattled off all these names and mentioned both Steve and George. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm in. Yeah. So I just called them both, and they were like, oh yeah, we could use you. So that was kind of how that worked. And
that's awesome.
I just got really lucky,
Were you on set at all, or was it all shop work?
Yes, I was on set. I was on set for Freddy's death, and also on set for the cockroach transformation, and also in the shop.
Very cool. So, yeah. Very cool. That's just awesome. And of course, Lisa Wilcox, who played Alice, will be here, and we're going to try to get a podcast with her after the signing. So stay tuned for that as well. And it's just so cool to have this community of not ex-Hollywoodites, but career Hollywood people that have kind of congregated here in Las Vegas. And we have a good talent pool to pull from. So I'm real excited. The Monster Museum obviously loves Freddy, and to have Freddy representatives in the house is pretty cool. The closest thing I've ever gotten to a Freddy Krueger makeup was on an adult film. But I did get nominated for an AVN. But and then let's talk about your dabbling in the Howling series.
Oh, Howling!
And you
was
can
another
tell us
one.
a little bit about the book that came out too.
Yeah, Howling 4 was another one that I got involved with Steve.
Okay.
And that's sort of somewhere in the timeline. I don't know where I missed that or where that falls.
Right.
But yeah, that was a great movie to work on. There was a ton of work on that film, and Bill Forsh, Bill Corso. It had a huge crew. All these guys that are still out there today winning awards, and I still see these guys winning Academy Awards and things like that. But just an incredibly talented crew on that film, and it was really neat to be a part of that.
I'm such a huge fan of the Howling series. I know when Howling 1 came out, there was so much debate. Are you an American Werewolf guy? Are you a Howling guy? Right. I was always a Howling guy because the Howling is scary. Yeah. The Howling was terrifying. It was a scary movie where American Werewolf had jump scares and stuff, but it was a comedy. Yeah. In my opinion. Yeah. But I love the Howling. I love the Howling 2. The marsupials were the weirdest thing ever.
That was 5, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That was a weird one.
But there's definitely credentials that come along with being part of that franchise, because that is a creature feature of which today would completely be digital. So it's very cool that it was practical effects. And
yeah, it was a cool thing to be part of, and I did everything from mold making to running foam to punching hair to, oh my god, so much freaking hair. Yeah. Just everything on that movie. Yeah. I mean, painting, everything. And it was really nice to be a part of it. And puppeteering. Yeah. God, we went from shop stuff all the way through the set stuff.
Where did they shoot it?
In South Africa.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you traveled to South Africa?
I did not. I was not part of the traveling. Shots. Yeah, I did the pickup shots. We rented a whole studio space next to Steve's shop to do all the pickups. And
Very cool.
Built a set in there.
This is another thing that I miss from effects movies, is we used to make these really cool pieces that would need specific set pieces to shoot and whatever. And there was a day where they would actually build out these small sound stages for effect shots and pickup shots, and go shoot the bulk of the movie, and then we would insert all this stuff. Today we get 2 days of insert days. In my world, I get 2 days of insert days, which is show up, we're going to do all the actors' dialogue they did poorly, and then we'll give you 3.5 hours of actually killing people with a puppet. And it's rough, man. That stuff's rough. So I can't imagine rolling actual film that costs money on actual pickup shots that are going to be used in the movie. Yeah. And then some of it gets left on the cutting room floor.
It wasn't a whole lot different than being on set. because you're it's still a stage and a set,
Yeah.
and the camera's there, and you're having to like wait in between takes and whatever, and that's where the whole story of me almost losing my arm on that film.
How'd that happen?
We had an entirely elevated set, and it's supposed to be in that forest where he's melting, and he's converting into, like, he melts all the way down and reforms into a wolf. So this pool of goo that we had, and we had this puppet that's laying in the pool of goo. So you have that, and you have the animatronic arm, the animatronic puppet laying there, and I'm underneath it, and I'm the live arm that's grabbing at the mud and while he's melting and doing all that. So I'm underneath that set, and I'm just put in this neoprene sleeve, and I'm laying under there. I think it was 12 hours or something like that.
Wow.
I can't remember exactly, but we were just doing take after take. They kept asking me if I was okay, and I'm like, yeah, I think I can do another one. I kept thinking it's going to be over. Last take, we'll be done. I won't have to get out and get back in, and I just kept pushing it, and I pushed it a little too long. And then I was like, I can't feel my arm anymore, because they wanted to go again, and I'm like, I can't feel my arm. I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I can move my arm.
Yeah.
And they had to call paramedics and pull me out of it, and and get my arm warmed up again and get blood flowing in it. It was ridiculous.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I lost my arm on the Howling.
Yeah.
4.
Yeah. Cost me an arm, not a leg. An arm.
That's awesome. So, you've worked on a handful of great movies, cult classics, horror classics, and then at some point you decide, I'm out. I'm done with this. What was it that made you decide you were done?
Well, the time that I left was I had started sort of designing and kicking around designs with George for Bride of Reanimator.
Okay.
And I threw a couple of designs at him for the movie, and then something just kind of, at that time, that was when we all knew digital was coming.
Yeah.
Because on Abyss, they did digital.
Yeah.
And it was a nice marriage of practical with digital, and I still am a firm believer in practical and digital work very well together.
Yeah.
Digital all the way doesn't cover everything. You don't get the organic feel from everything. But I knew it was coming, and at that time there was a lot of kind of buzz around the shops and everybody that, oh my God, this is going to replace us.
Still to this day.
Yeah.
That buzz never stopped.
It was that panic though, because we knew it was coming.
Yeah.
And it hadn't been there in the effects business yet.
Yeah.
So it was coming, and everybody's really kind of paranoid, and I just kept thinking, well, what's my next step? If I'm not going to have a job anymore, I'm not going to be able to do this anymore. What the hell am I going to do? So I don't remember exactly everything around what happened. I don't know why I sort of left right at the beginning of Bride. I don't think George ever held that against me, but I just moved. I moved out of state. I'm like, I'm done with this. I was freaking out. I'm like, I need to get out of California, go like somewhere where there's farmland, and like get away from things for a while.
Yeah.
So I did, and I wound up married and had a couple kids, and took a
sabbatical,
a serious sabbatical.
Yeah.
And well, divorced and all that later on, but yeah, it took me away from LA and kind of out of it for a while. Even during that time, I was moved up I think I was living in Reno, and George had me produce 2 music videos for him.
Oh, that's
so
cool.
That was kind of, it was kind of like I was gone, but I wasn't totally gone.
Right.
George was in contact with me, and he would ask me on certain things. Hey, do you want to come do this? Hey, do you want to help with that? I was doing post-production stuff up in Reno. I was doing camera work. I was doing post stuff. I was a good editor, so I was doing a lot of post-production stuff, and he just asked if I wanted to help him produce a couple music videos for his band, and
yeah,
so we did, and I helped him with the effects and everything.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what brought you back to the world of being a working artist and kind of back into talking horror films and being part of the community again? What was it? What was the moment that was like, you know what? I think I'm gonna go do some work. I'm gonna get on a Slipknot video. I'm gonna, what was it?
Well, in a roundabout way, like I said, I was in Reno for a few years, and then I went back to California. I spent some time at the beach. I lived in Santa Cruz for a while. that was a sabbatical from Reno after I divorced, and it was good. It was good for me to get out of there. I needed to sort of take a break and figure my life out. And then in 2007, I moved here to Las Vegas because I thought, I had some friends here and there. I had done some haunts and stuff like that because, I never really totally got out of it. I got into more haunt stuff because people caught wind in Reno that I was there, and they're like, hey, come help us with this haunt. And so I did some haunt stuff there, and then wound up moving to Las Vegas in 2007 and working for a theming company. So even though I did a lot of electronic stuff there, and I designed a lot of stuff for them and helped with parts of things, I was there for 12 years before I actually left. But I was helping with a lot of things. I don't know if you remember the Overwatch Colossal Collectibles that Steve Wang did.
Oh yeah.
We brought those here to Vegas. I helped design and build all the boxes for those. They were all giant boxes, 15, 20-foot boxes. And get all the electronics in those and get them lit and get everything done. So I never really, I sort of expanded on what I knew rather than, I knew molds, I knew foam, I knew all that stuff. But then working for the theming company, it was like, now it's sort of like, okay, you're learning electronics, you're learning LEDs, you're programming this, you're doing that. So it was, now I've expanded on my knowledge for those things. And I did that for 12 years, and that company was sort of abusive to their employees, and I just got tired of that and decided I was going to start my own thing. And that's where, I went and, secured the Evel Knievel statue, and, I did a 12-foot octopus for a tiki bar here. And just little projects sort of started coming my way. I also did a haunted alley here with Zappos.
I've seen pictures of that.
I did that
with
Zappos.
Cool.
That was like 65 zombie makeups each for one night.
Yeah.
It was crazy. But I wound up heading that up and hiring the team for that, and it was insanity, but it was fun. So yeah, little projects kept coming my way, and I just started to think, I just need to do things myself. I need to work for myself again.
Yeah.
And right in October, when we worked on the Slipknot video together, was when I decided to call it quits on the day job thing and start working in effects and whatever I could get a hold of, producing, directing, whatever.
Right.
As we've talked about, I've got scripts, I've got
Yeah, Nick's got a ton of stuff ready to go, and he's got some partners that they've been talking. Of course, we all hit a pause on the world here for a little while, but before that, like he's saying, we got to collaborate on a Slipknot video along with Steve Johnson, and also I brought some of my guys from my team and some friends, and we all just got together and made this really cool, weird artsy heavy
short film, metal music video, short film, whatever it was.
That was a blast, and
awesome.
I can't tell you how many people have seen that video. That video was like millions have seen it.
Well, and I don't know if I'm going to fill your head. You'll need help carrying your ego through the door here.
I already do.
But I still have to give you a huge thanks for all of that, because that was that was kind of the thing that let me know that I can do this again, and I can do this well. Again, because for me it was like coming to you, and you knew exactly who you needed to bring on for it, and it was like glass, man. It was just so easy, and everybody jived on that set, no problems. I mean, we had one girl freak out, and that was it.
Yeah.
And it may have been a 16-hour day, but everything went like
smooth
butter.
Yeah. And that's the way it should be. I mean, sometimes it's not based on nervous energy or whatever, but that's the way it should be. I'm a firm believer, if you're going to do a project, go have fun with it. Don't make it, and sometimes things don't work. We showed up on that project and the director had not approved any of the looks yet.
Right.
So it was like, all right, let's get these approved. Let's move forward. And everybody listen to Steve right now, because he needs some support, and
yeah,
it worked out.
He was freaking out.
He was a little bit, but going in, he had just traveled all the way here with a bunch of materials that haven't been approved.
Yeah.
So I had pretty much most of my shop in my trailer there in case they weren't approved.
In case something else had to be made.
He could say, I need this or I need that. And I got it. I got it, boss. Got it, boss.
Yeah.
Because as a boss, I am 100% want my crew to support me.
Yeah.
So I don't work for others often. So I try to put myself in the position that I would want to be in. You know?
That's why I really enjoy working with you, because for us, guys like us, it's always more of a collaboration than a boss thing, because everybody has like exactly on that set, we figured out what everybody's like forte was and said, you're going to do this since you're fast and efficient with it. You're going to do that.
Yep.
You're going to do this. You're going to do this. So that's why I think we were able to knock it out so beautifully.
And I think that in the future, those projects will jump up and we'll be able to do it again. I'm real interested on getting onto something. Well, the hard part is this: I don't absolutely love being on set anymore, but I love being on set with people I like. So that makes it
tolerable.
Yeah, I have a hard time with the amount of stress that is unnecessarily pushed on these projects. I understand they cost a lot of money and a lot of people's time.
Yeah.
But we're not out there fixing the towers after they fell after 9/11. We're making horror movies.
Right.
They should be fun. So I don't really enjoy ADs and people that are, I like to be in a setting and an environment where it is smooth and fun. And if I can help diffuse it, I will. And if not, I will just do my best to get the job done. But it's one of those things. Being on set is a weird thing for me because it was my childhood dream. I've done it more than I care to ever do it. But at the same time, it's a little bit of an addiction. Like
Totally.
Every time I quit, I'm like, well, I'm going to go do this one. But I am going to do this one.
Yeah, shit. Even when I left LA, it was like, you miss it.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I'm away from it for a minute. And then 2 weeks later, I'm like, did I do the right thing?
Yeah.
You get that itch to do something.
It's true. But I don't miss Los Angeles. I don't miss Southern California.
No.
And what I'm hoping to do here in Vegas is, we've talked about this, build this network of like horror sci-fi junkies that there's always somebody for the job, and we make quality product out of our city, and then other states come to our city looking for us. That's what I'm heavily interested into, So we'll see where this goes. But Nick, I gotta say, since I've met you, I feel like I have a friend in town, and there's a couple other effects guys that I'm close with, but there's not a whole lot of people to talk shop with here, and not that aren't new. I have so much new blood, but it's like I'm just telling them stories. With you, I get to listen to your stories. I get to relate to your stories.
Right.
Where with a lot of the new guys, I feel like I'm just boring them with stories of like how great it used to be. But and it was great, but it also still is great. Like when we do things like that Slipknot video, or I work with a director local here, Drew Marvick. When I go work with him, we are high-fiving and laughing all day long.
Well, Drew's
and
hilarious.
That's all that matters, to me. And I think that, but it's awesome having you in town. It's awesome seeing you at the Monster Museum here and there, and always, of course, collaborating on schemes of how we're going to push forward.
We got to keep working.
Yep. And with that, I think, unless you got anything else, I'm going to wrap this one up. I am going to remind everybody, on July 11th, we are having our anniversary party here at the Monster Museum. It's always a huge hit, and this time we're going to have Lisa Wilcox, Nick Benson himself, and there may be some other surprises from the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. So stay tuned, and let's wrap this one up. I'm Tom Devlin, this is Nick Benson, and we are out.